It's not exactly a secret that in GTA, we mostly control some fully fledged crooks who, at first glance, are completely devoid of any moral spine and don't pay much respect to the law. Of course, it could be difficult to imagine a different scenario. After all, that's what GTA is all about. It portrays the reality of living beyond the system. Hence, it'd be strange if suddenly we get a protagonist who, during the story, obeys the law and works 9 to 5 as a sales representative. No freaking way, but it's no crime to speculate a bit. That's why today, we'll look at the traits, skills, and competencies of the main characters of the GTA series, and we'll try to determine what career paths would be ideal for them, assuming they're forced to live legally. You know, we'll sort of become their career counselors. Obviously, I'll also count on you in the comments because this subject is one of the kind, as many people, as many opinions. We'll start with Niko, a Balkan psychopath who actually wanted to become a legit person and stop working for gangsters during the events of GTA 4. Niko wanted to stop killing, stealing, and harming, but the circumstances that he was constantly thrown into were not helping him achieve that. Well, in any case, what could Niko do? Which profession fits him the most? Well, he was really smart, perceptive, etc., maybe an IT guy.
Listen, man, you should try going online.
I know how to go on the line. I just haven't done it here.
Of course. Technophobe, Luddite.
Alright, well, on second thought, maybe that's not the greatest of ideas. Personally, I think that in Niko's case, we should try and go for something outside the box. See, I think he would do well as a stand-up comedian, and this time, I'm not joking. And yes, I know, in theory, this completely does not suit him. GTA 4 is grim, and Niko is a sad guy filled with anger, and it's a fact that he's not a person who forces a smile on our faces with just his way of being. However, at certain moments, he can really put together a very quality joke, but not the kind of joke that people like Gracie find amusing.
So anyway, Sharon, I think I'm gonna sell my car. Oh my God, that is so funny!
Wait, what's so funny about that?
Absolutely nothing.
What the fuck?
Niko, in a very original and funny way, can describe or comment on what's going on around him. He is obviously best at it in the case of his cousin.
Kuya stereotype.
Brucey, have you met my cousin? Niko, this is Brucey. We met online.
Oh, lovemeat.net?
I don't know about you, but personally, when someone's telling a joke and they're laughing at it more than the listener, well, it feels awkward. Niko, though, he often completely hides the fact that he's joking, which makes the joke itself simply better. It's an important trait for any stand-up comedian. You know, they tell a joke with that suspicious little smile on their face. Everybody's laughing and they just move on to another story as if there was nothing funny. Niko, with his sarcastic personality, fits in like a glove. Another good argument would be that Niko is also good at exaggerating. Take a listen to this, for example.
He cannot go much further. We must reach Pecorino soon.
At least we're seeing some of Alderney. I don't normally come this side of the West River.
Seeing Roman. No company's ground neither and thing. It's a different city from the rest of Liberty. True?
I am not taking you on some tourist sightseeing tour. We're chasing a scumbag back to his boss. Then we're going to make that shithead pay for what he did to Kate. Understand?
Exaggerating and coloring a situation is something that stand-up comedians are well known for. Niko often was able to articulate a situation as if it was some glamorous ceremony. You know, he would form his statements in a very poetic manner, saying it with an official tone even when the situation did not require that at all.
We are from the sauce of that Pecorino. We might be hiding in the north of Alderney somewhere.
Okay, we're making some progress then. We will keep on this guy, and hopefully he won't kill us or crash before he leads us to Pecorino. I'm about ready to see that particular moron.
Yeah, me too.
Let me know whether you could imagine Niko as a comedian. In terms of those more obvious answers for Niko, a cab driver in his cousin's company is definitely a good go, which Niko even could do in the game story and later in a side mission for Roman.
Hey Roman, you want me to drive anyone anywhere?
Niko, you're a good cousin. I was hoping that you would start to help me. Come collect the car from the depot. Okay. Go over to Cerveza Heights to pick up the fare. They're going to Boulevard.
Besides, considering that Niko was a moral person, or at least he wanted to be one, professions like a policeman, firefighter, security guard, or a border guard would also be his cup of tea. We should also notice Niko's combat skills and the experience he gained in the military. Those abilities would be very desired by some government agency, for example, in a special enforcement unit. It's not a surprise that the contact at United Liberty Paper, impressed with Niko's skills, hired him and got him to do some dirty work for the agency.
Hold on. You mean to say you're going to let us off just like that? Nothing now go on?
Well,
My employers need the help of a guy like Niko.
Another option would be to save some money and open a tavern, about which Roman mentions in the Roman Sorrow mission.
I was thinking about getting out of the cab business. Last night I had a dream.
Really?
Yes. You and I had a place of our own. A place where people come to eat and relax. Classy place. None of this fast food diner bullshit. We own a real restaurant. Tavern. It's a place of distinction, you know?
Now we got Trevor, whom it's very difficult to picture as an average Joe. Trevor loved to live outside the law. He felt like a fish in the sea living like that. He loved to rob banks and kill people. It was like a hobby for him. However, Trevor was not always a crook and a professional killer. He once wanted to follow a career as a military pilot. As you've probably already guessed, he got kicked out, as the military psychologist considered him as an unstable maniac, and that he cannot be assigned any serious missions. Well, you can't argue that she didn't do a good job here. Trevor himself later mentions that he signed up as a pilot only in hopes that one day he'll get to bomb villages and drop nukes. But I think there's a place in the world in which Trevor, from an unpredictable, insane, and emotionally unstable psychopath, would turn into a good dog, who would only think about pleasing everyone around. See, considering how well Trevor always describes his mother, even though she's always treated him worse than Toni's mom treated her son, constantly leaving her child for long periods of time, considering how much emotion accompanied Trevor in his affair with Patricia, Madrazo's wife, looking at what was Trevor's approach to Franklin's aunt or Marianne, and also throwing this into the equation.
Love ain't a test of standard. It ain't an exam, nigga. Love don't know about age. Ain't that right, T?
Absolutely. Personally, I find women my age are too immature to really get me.
You too? My man.
I've always found that. Ever since I was abandoned. Hey.
We can conclude that Trevor had some very suspicious weakness for older women. Perhaps you already know where I'm going with this. If not, then I'll say it now. See, I'd hire Trevor at a nursing home, especially one that admits only women. This guy simply loves mature women, and I think that he'd be perfect for that role. Looking at his relationship with Patricia, there's a chance that Trevor could maybe even give up robbing the Union Depository for this gig. Moreover, Trevor complained that everyone whom he loves eventually leaves him, and no one shows him love. In such a nursing home, I think that he'd develop fantastic relationships with all those old ladies, which would silence the personality of this maniac. Other than that, Trevor had this thing about which I'll tell you in a second, which is easy to notice after listening to his conversations with other characters during hangouts. I'm talking about his need to be someone's mentor, teacher, a guide through life. He kept telling Franklin or Jimmy that they should look up to him, that he's an amazing role model, and that he'll make them real men. Additionally, he admits that he's jealous of Michael about the fact that he's got kids, feeling that the world treated him unfairly. Trevor complains that because the world never blessed him with an opportunity to have children, his potential as a father figure is being wasted. This would also greatly explain why he so often reminds Michael of how terrible a father he is and that his children are two walking failures. Why am I saying all this? Well, considering how Trevor wanted to lecture everybody around him, starting on Michael and ending on Ron or Wade, it's clear that Trevor would be cut out for a career as a lifestyle coach. What's more, taking into account how much he loathed liars, there's a big chance he would not even fool his mentees. You know, he wouldn't advise them to get up at 5 a.m. all the while sleeping until 2 p.m. himself, etc., etc. The only thing worrying me is that considering the lifestyle that Trevor conducted, he'd turned people into uncontrollable beasts, which could result in Los Santos becoming a battlefield of anarchists. But maybe I'm exaggerating. Besides, Trevor also mentions that he'd like to be an artist, a singer, a painter, or even a rapper. All that to be able to send his message to the world in his work. And here, I'd even say that it doesn't sound weird at all. After all, artists are in a big part peculiar people whose work is very unique and offers something completely new, often shocking or controversial. And well, I think we'd all agree that Trevor is a very original individual. And at the end, a few topical fun facts. Trevor tried being a hockey player. His career, however, ended quite quickly, as not only did he not function well in teams, one time he stuck a hockey stick up his coach's ass, which destroyed his hopes of becoming a professional. Trevor also tried taking up breakdancing, but from what he said, it didn't go that well. Oh, and in one of the conversations with Jimmy, he says that he'd like to extend his business by opening a human sausage factory. Well, an eye-catching idea, but not very legit, so that option is out of the question, unfortunately. With Tommy Vercetti, it's pretty simple. See, as we find out in the Print Works thread, Tommy's father was most likely an owner of a printing company.
Yeah, my old man used to work on these. I used to spend the evenings with him cleaning the rollers. I was gonna follow him in his trade, but I lived a different life.
We don't know that for sure, but maybe Tommy's dad was just a worker. However, if he got his son to help him with work after hours, it rather points at him being the owner of the business. In any case, Tommy used to help his old man in cleaning the rollers in the printing machines and admits that his initial career plan involved following in his father's footsteps. Therefore, Tommy, assuming that he'd never start working for the Ferrelli Mafia, he'd most likely just take over his dad's business and earn a living in this way. I think he'd be quite good at it. Knowing Tommy's character, he'd quickly try to develop the business. More than that, Tommy, in the game, proved that he has extraordinary skills of managing an enterprise, so growing a company would come natural for him. Tommy is a born leader, whether it's a printing business or anything else. He'd just make a great entrepreneur. I'm convinced that his company would achieve big success because of the ease with which Tommy was able to gain valuable contacts. He constituted a value in those relationships, thanks to which other people also wanted to partner with him long-term. A great example of this is Avery Carrington, but also Colonel Cortez. Tommy simply knew what people he'll need in order to build his business and how to manage their skills. People like that are bound for success. Those who hire at their companies people better than themselves in fields that a company needs to improve to reach the very top. All that makes me think that Tommy's only right way to go is becoming an entrepreneur. He was born to be one. His skills and character are cut out just right for this sort of career. Carl Johnson, on the other hand, is the last person I'd associate with becoming an entrepreneur. He was severely lacking initiative. Fine, sometimes, as a result of strong emotion or some inspiration from God, he did take some actions. Sometimes completely random actions, which paradoxically eventually turned out to be very beneficial for him in the long term. It doesn't change the fact though that most of the time he was a skillful guy, but also a guy who needed someone to tell him what to do and how to correctly utilize his abilities. That's why Woozie was so crucial in CJ's life, who very often pointed him in the right direction. Besides, people like Woozie were also responsible for the success of CJ's mod garage in San Fierro. Sure, CJ was running some difficult errands, but Kendall was the brains of the operation, as well as Caesar, who had big knowledge on cars. And let's not forget about the Truth, who assembled the crew for CJ. But CJ was actually creative, only that he struggled with verifying his own ideas. Sure, sometimes he'd manage to make a good plan, like how to get Ron Fa Li safely out of Woozie's apartment, or how to effectively infiltrate and destroy the Loco Syndicate. CJ also was responsible for planning the Caligula's casino heist.
Now I know you blind, man, but you gotta see this.
However, other times, his creativity was absurd and not thought through at all, which we saw with the toilet stunt, in which CJ wiped out the entire construction team and destroyed their building site just because someone shouted some abuse at Kendall. So CJ, in my opinion, would be good material for a lot of things, but he'd have to meet someone who'd show him what to do. Due to that, as well as other things, such as that CJ had the ability to adapt, I think that CJ would make a great assistant, advisor, bodyguard, or that less influential partner. Michael DeSanta. In fact, even during the events of GTA 5, he managed to gain a seemingly legal career alternative in the shape of the partnership with Solomon Richards, and being an executive producer in the Meltdown movie. However, Michael only took care of the dirty side of the business, not really having any influence on the script or any other things that directly connected with the production of the film. Michael was doing things such as killing rival agents or threatening actors so they wouldn't complain about the money that Solomon offered them for the role. To put it short, not very legal stuff. But in our world of legit protagonists, Michael, considering his obsession with old movies, he definitely could try his luck as a scriptwriter, a director, or an actor, which actually aligns with his personality and what life taught him. You know, after all, you have to be a good actor to be able to hide the harsh truth from Franklin or Trevor for such a long time. So the movie industry is definitely something for him. What's more, his ability to pull the wool over people's eyes and his ability of the kind, I only care about myself and others are irrelevant, would make him a great fit for the role of a salesman whose only objective is to make customers buy as much crap as possible for the biggest possible price. Michael would be a good asset for some scam company that sells low-quality products. I picture him as a Wolf of Wall Street. Fits perfectly. I'll play you something, and please let me know what you think. Does it fit Michael or not? For me, it's simply the most natural image in my head. Michael as a broker, convincing his client to purchase some random crappy company stock.
Hello, John. How you doing today? You mailed in my company a postcard a few weeks back requesting information on penny stocks that had huge upside potential. Name of the company, Aerotine International. It is a cutting-edge, high-tech firm out of the Midwest awaiting imminent patent approval on a next generation of radar detectors that have both huge military and civilian applications. Now.
What's interesting, Michael, as a teenager, was also pretty good at a certain sport, most likely American football. However, an injury and temper issues disqualified him from following that career path.
So I trained.
You were good?
Yeah, front page of the local paper. You know, guys stopping me in the street. Yeah, I was good. High school good.
So what happened?
Injury, temper issues, all that shit. Yeah, it wasn't for me, I guess.
Franklin Clinton. Franklin had barely any education. He got expelled from school for beating up a teacher. Since a young age, his only profession was slanging dope and shooting rival thugs on the block with his homie Lamar. As you imagine, this is not the kind of experience you want on your CV. Additionally, his lack of education is exposed multiple times in the game when someone says something fruity.
It's good to see you, T.
And you. And old stick-in-the-mud Franklin.
Man, I don't know what the fuck that means, but fuck you.
Of course, that absolutely doesn't mean that he's completely inept or anything like that. What I'm saying is that we should probably rule out the possibility of him becoming a quantum physics professor, to put it mildly. What we can also conclude is that Franklin would struggle to be able to follow a specific career path. Many things indicate that, in his case, he'd just go work wherever they'd hire him, collecting negative experiences along the way, similarly to what was the case with Simeon. Moreover, Franklin was born in the ghetto amongst gangsters and in a family that can hardly be called a family. He never knew his dad, and from what he heard, his father beat his mom, who was no better, as she was addicted to drugs more than Winnie the Pooh to honey. In short, he had a very tough start. The way he was treated by employers is well summarized by Simeon in one of the cutscenes.
Look, man, it's been a real honor, homie. But I gotta move forward in my life. It seems like all I do is let people tell me what to do and I do it and nothing changes.
I tell you what, my boy, you tell me exactly what you want and I will very carefully explain to you why it cannot be.
What?
Trying to be more positive though, Franklin could try something that will utilize his extraordinary driving skills. The role of a professional driver or a racer would definitely be something for him. Alternatively, he could become a person that takes people who are not great drivers themselves for hardcore rides in fast cars on a racing track, so they can feel the adrenaline that accompanies such activities. There's a channel on YouTube, Misha Sheridan. He takes people for rides on a track. He's a driving instructor. I think that's something that Franklin could be good at. Luis Lopez. Here, we don't have to look very far. See, the environment that Luis found himself in the ballad is just simply perfect for him. I can easily picture him as a club manager, whom he'd actually become had he agreed for a partnership with Rocco at the end of the ballad. Luis could also become a head of security or just a security guard, so follow professions that he already followed in the DLC. Luis would also be a good bouncer in my opinion. You know, a guy who stands at the club entrance and makes sure that no one smuggles anything into a club and that everyone follows a required dress code. And of course, in case of some issues at a club, they take care of troublemakers as well. The last one is even shown in the game itself, in one of the side activities that we can perform with Luis. Luis could also try his luck as a professional fighter. From one of the conversations with Bulgarin, or in the Mama's Boy mission, we can find out that in the past, he used to participate in illegal cage fights, and he was quite good at it. So a professional fighter would be a way to go. Even Bulgarin proposed that to Luis. And at the end, it's worth mentioning that Luis used to most likely be in the military, which I conclude from one of the pictures at his apartment. To be fair, it's a challenge for me to imagine Johnny Klebitz as a legitimate man in a legitimate job. However, considering that he's in a motorcycle club, it would be far from wild to assume that he knows quite a lot about motorbikes. After all, the Hexer that we drive in The Lost and Damned is a bike that Johnny personalized and modded according to his wish. His knowledge on the topic and his passion for motorcycles makes Johnny a perfect candidate to become a motorcycle mechanic. And obviously, not only does he know a lot about motorcycles, but he also handles them very well, which he proves by winning multiple races organized by motorbike enthusiasts in Liberty City in the game. What I'm saying is that if Johnny at some point got more into racing bikes, becoming a bike racer would be a valid alternative for him. And then, more as a fun fact, we got one dialogue line from the off-route mission for Congressman Stubbs.
Mom always told me I'd be a bus driver.
So, what do you think? Would Johnny make a good bus driver? Let me know in a comment. In terms of Victor Vance, it would be difficult to put anything else as the main career option than the military. After all, it's the profession that he chose himself. and the one he follows at the beginning of the game. By the way, Vic's the only protagonist that at the beginning of the game's story does not have any criminal history. I would even say that Vic is a perfect fit for the military. Disciplined, hardworking, thorough, able to follow orders, diligent, and with good combat skills. Not only that, but in my opinion, Vic could also go quite far in the hierarchy in the military. Cause apart from all the traits listed a while ago, as the story of GTA Vice City stories showed, he was intelligent and had great leadership skills. Therefore, he could become a highly ranked soldier that could manage some unit. Besides, it's worth looking at one more thing. See, Vic was a moral person and wanted to help others, as it was portrayed on the example of his sick brother, or on Luis's example. Vic had a good heart and he had a sense of a mission, willingness to provide. You could even say that Vic valued the happiness of people he cared about more than his own. Therefore, Vic could go in that direction of helping people and utilize his morality and intelligence to become a doctor, a paramedic, or a prosecutor who'd do his best to catch as many criminals as possible. In the case of Toni Cipriani from GTA LCS, the obvious answer is that, similarly to Tommy, he'd inherit a business from his parents. This time, not a printing company, but a restaurant that we see either in GTA Liberty City Stories as well as in GTA 3. As was shown by the position of Tony in GTA 3, in which he was a capo of the mafia, Tony did have some basic leadership skills, so he shouldn't have any issues with running a restaurant. I also thought about a waiter or a cook, but in Liberty City Stories, we can see that it wouldn't fully align with his personality. Tony liked to give orders. Taking all that into consideration, I think that Cipriani could be good material for a high position at some company, a position in which he'd have someone above him, but he'd also have a small unit that he would get to manage. I mean, a position like he had in the Mafia. On one hand, he was working for Salvatore, but on the other, he was also giving orders to some, like to Claude for example. All that connects well to his relationship with his mom, who's always patronized him. This made Tony forget that he can take actions on his own. His tyrannical mother caused Tony to not be able to fully trust himself, so he always had to have someone above him. And for the end, I left Claude, whom I don't think is possible to imagine as anything else than a hitman. A mute psycho with zero initiative that'll go wherever someone tells him to. Zero loyalty and blindly following after money is something that describes him perfectly. An archetype of a hitman. But if I was to make something up, I don't know, maybe a stuntman? You know, if he was so fearless, this could be a way to go. And the last idea I got was, yet again, a racer. But that's a bit stretched, cause if even CJ managed to beat him in a race, and we know how good CJ's driving was.
No disrespect, man, but you can't drive for shit.
This career path does not seem like his best option. So I'm waiting for your opinions in the comments. Critique is also welcome. I even kind of hope that you have different ideas to the ones I presented, and that you'll share them in a comment. Meanwhile, I'm saying goodbye. Take care and see you soon.